Welcome to the Business Wave, the Enterprise Europe Network's podcast bringing big ideas to small businesses. I'm your host, Roxandra Bosilka. Today we'll explore how busy entrepreneurs can manage stress for a more fulfilling, mindful, and productive life. Our special guests are Emma Ewing and Tammy Barter. Emma has led Big Fish training for over 20 years, helping people set boundaries, manage time, and handle tough conversations. As a business owner, she understands these challenges firsthand. Tammy is a wellness coach, nutrition expert, and certified Pilates instructor. As a business working mom, she knows the value of time and energy. So she has spent the last 10 years learning the very best techniques from industry leaders to manage stress, build resilience, and keep both body and mind energized. Hi, Emma and Tammy. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Hello, lovely to be here. Thank you.
Emma, what's your experience with being an entrepreneur and managing stress?
Okay, so firstly, the experience is personal. I am a business owner, I am an entrepreneur, and in the very beginning, I set up my training business, Big Fish Training, and it was just me. So the stress came from trying to make it succeed and doing every single thing myself. I think a lot of your listeners will recognize that. Suddenly learning how to be an accountant as well as delivering, how to read a profit sheet, how to pitch to clients. And then, so it was important for me to be able to manage my own stress, identify my stressors. And I know Tammy's going to talk through some great techniques about identifying and dealing with stressors. But then I started to employ people. I had a bigger team. So that made life easy in some ways, but it made life more stressful in other ways because you have a bigger team. And I think one of the things that's really important is you need to lead by example. So if you are saying to people, please look after your well-being, please don't get too stressed about this, you need to show that you're not saying one thing and doing another. So I think there is something about being an entrepreneur, managing your own stress. But if you've got people around you that are looking to your leadership, you need to show them it's okay to get stressed. I mean, I think stress is a natural response, and we're busy, passionate people. We love our businesses, but we need to also show we got stressed. Here's how we dealt with it. And here's how you might be able to help yourself.
What are the most common stress triggers for small business owners?
Well, I thought about this because there are lots. There will be many, many things like overworking, wondering if you're doing the right things. But I'm going to say the big root of a lot of this is money. For a business owner, that bottom line, when you're starting out, when you're scaling, securing funding, if the resources aren't there or we're worrying about getting the resources, then everything else comes from that. If we're overworked, maybe we need to employ someone else, but we can't yet risk the investment. Maybe we're pitching for business, we're wanting to get new customers. We know we have to invest in some marketing, but will it be the right one? And these things can cause a lot of the external factors, can cause a lot of internal stress and worry. And we can internalize that. There is, on two sides of the coin, having too much work will create overwhelm and stress. And we will be talking about how that actually shows up for us as entrepreneurs. But equally, I would say, and we see this in our clients, because one of the ways that we see stress showing up in entrepreneurs is in our training and coaching. We hear people telling us how it's affecting them and their confidence. It's also if you're doing a lot of work, but not necessarily seeing the results yet. So it might be that you're launching a program, you're creating a project, you've got a great idea, but you haven't been able to secure the funding yet. And it feels like you've done all the networking, all the applications in the world, and you are not succeeding. And then there's one more thing, which is about, again, the internal stress we might create, which is everybody on LinkedIn is doing marvelously. Everyone is a super success. Yes, we go to networking. How's business? Oh, great. I've got this contract. I'm on this podcast. I'm doing this. And I think it can be really easy to tell yourself, I'm not doing well in comparison. And that can be really stressful because that will lead to underconfidence, maybe overthinking all your decisions. So you don't make the right decision for your business. You will feel demotivated. Should I be running this business? Should I actually have given up my lovely, safe, comfortable job to start this business? What was I thinking? Help. And I think many people have had that moment where they've just stopped. It's felt too stressful and they've thought, how do I get out of this? And of course, when we don't feel stressed, we love the challenge because a certain amount of stress is really good for us. It helps to motivate us and to help us galvanize into action. We love it. But too much stress, prolonged stress, is going to hurt our performance and, hurt our happiness and our success.
How does stress affect our ability to make decisions and stay productive?
Great question. So I think decision making and productivity are both two quite different things, but they also feed into each other. So if we start with decision making, there's been a lot of research around the effect of stress on decision making, and there are 5 key things that will affect us and our teams. So we need to be aware of them. I'll very quickly talk you through the 5, but they are impaired cognitive function. So high levels of stress, according to Amy Armstrong's research, actually makes us less clever, essentially. Our attention, our ability to pay attention goes down, our memory starts to suffer, and our problem-solving ability starts to suffer, which you can then see the link to productivity, because if we can't problem solve, we slow ourselves down. We're very poor at risk assessment. So when we're under stress, we're poor at risk assessment. We might make riskier decisions or poorer outcome decisions because we are looking to face or solve rather the problem immediately rather than do it in a creative way. So we narrow our focus and we look for the easy win. Well, in business, you don't always want the easy win. Sometimes the harder win is what's going to make your business more successful. And also, I think we've all seen it, and this is really important for you as a leader and for your team. It's that emotional influence. So stress can really affect us emotionally. We might not all turn into the Incredible Hulk. We might not all burst into tears at our desktop, but we could be more short-tempered. We could be less tolerant of mistakes in our team or for ourselves. And our emotional responses could be heightened. So maybe we take not getting a contract with a new customer much more personally, and then it affects our confidence going out there. So that heightened emotional response is huge. And I think we can play a part in recognizing that for ourselves, but also look out for in our teams. Are people behaving differently? What is actually having an influence on their emotional responses? And then, frankly, I talked about it, having a negative effect on your cognitive functions. It also has an impact on your information processing. So it's much harder to process information on the decision making, weigh up information. We can't necessarily compare between options, because the stress is driving us to make poorer decisions, quicker decisions. Because in nature, when we're stressed, the way through, if you're a lion or a tiger, is to do something. If we're in trouble, if a lion or a tiger or any animal is stressed, they normally have to go harder, faster, or longer. But actually, for business owners, we need to be able to take a step back and work smarter. So instead of pushing through, working harder, pushing ourselves, we need to work smarter to help our brains. And then the 5th element is decision avoidance. So you asked, how does it affect decision making? Sometimes it leads to procrastination. There's a decision, and because everything is filling your head, oh, you can't make that decision. It feels too hard. So you put it off until tomorrow, until tomorrow, until tomorrow. And that's really poor in business. And I've heard said a lot of times, and many people find this to be true, it's better to make a poor decision than no decision at all, because at least you have momentum. And then if I can, that leads into productivity, because if you've got these decisions that are less than optimum and they're being delayed, that then leads into a loss of productivity for you and your team. So you will have a decreased focus at work, and maybe you'll notice in yourself or your teams there's a bit more scrolling of social media than is strictly necessary. People might start working longer hours because they're not able to pay attention. Stress has been linked to increased errors. There's been some research by Sapolsky that decreased accuracy and increased errors when we're under stress is very likely. And we know that. If somebody's saying, hurry up, find your keys, hurry up, just in an everyday household situation, that's when we drop the keys on the floor, drop our bag, start to panic. So that added pressure of stress makes us behave less well and things take longer. We definitely take a longer time to do things. We start to second guess ourselves, and things just take a little bit longer to do. Tammy's going to talk about burnout, because the effect of stress on productivity is that if you've got a lot to do, you can move into what's been identified as the surge response. And the surge response helps us to get through a period where we're very, very busy. That comes again from a survival. Surge response was really helpful in a natural disaster. So if there was an earthquake, well, you would need to be able to really work hard. You couldn't take a step back and say, let me reflect on this. You would have to survive. So the surge response is fantastic for that. And in fact, that was named, if people want to look into it, it's quite interesting, by Professor Ann Marston, who's a psychologist and professor of child development at the University of Minnesota. She did quite a lot of research on this around the pandemic when that hit. And in nature, if there was a crisis or a natural disaster, that's a short duration. It is an acute phase. And that's what the surge response is designed to deal with. Unfortunately, if that stress is prolonged, as if we were having earthquake after earthquake after earthquake, then the surge response burns out. We have a lack of resilience, and the surge response becomes chronic, and we simply cannot be productive. And I think, again, we all know that. We've tried to work for too long, and then we come back and have a look at what we've written the next day. Oh dear, that's not a good piece of writing. You can't believe it, can you? And then the fifth thing here is that it leads back into poor decision making, so that we prioritize wrongly. So if we have a big list of things to do, we might, because we're stressed, instead of tackling a small chunk of an important thing that we need to do, we might do some of, unconsciously, by the way, this is a very unconscious bias, we might choose to do the things that are shorter or easier, but they actually don't move our business forward. So those are the things. I think it does lead hugely into productivity, decision making, two separate areas of the brain, but they really work together.
Thank you, Emma, for this detailed picture of how stress impacts us both personally and professionally. What stress management techniques can small business owners add to their busy schedules?
No, fantastic. And that was a really great overview by Emma there. And what she's talking about with the surge response and sort of the stress response is the fight or flight response, what we call fight or flight. So to tell you a little bit about what's going on biologically within the body, is the body is a fantastic instrument, and its sole purpose is to keep you safe. So any stress at all, as Emma says, whether that would be from a lion coming to attack you, to a supplier sending you an email saying an order is going to be delayed, something like that, your body cannot differentiate between the two. So it will give you that stress response for both, and that's an increase in adrenaline, noradrenaline. All of these stress hormones will start pumping because it wants to get you to a safe place. So whether that be we say, fight or flight, so you either fight the lion or you run away from it, but it could be flop as well. So that's where you almost like try and hide and put yourself in a ball and just try not to deal with it. They're all biological responses. So whenever I talk to someone about stress and techniques they can use, the very first tip I will always give them is breathing. Because when all of these stress hormones hit the body, your breathing will quicken, you'll get sweaty palms, your heart rates will feel like it's racing. As Emma says, the mind starts to close down, you're less creative because your brain is just saying, focus on this stress. We need to get away from here because it's a danger. So by breathing, it's really, really powerful for you to bring down those stress levels and just tell the body, we're okay. Everything's okay here. I don't need you. Thank you very much, but I've got this. And the way in which I get people to practice it, there's lots of different ways. So you can have a look online at various breathing techniques. But the one that I love is box breathing. Because it does two things. It lowers the stress response, but it also distracts the mind. So if you've got kind of certain thoughts on loop going around in your head, sort of making you more and more anxious, it will help stop that as well. So with the box breath, you basically just inhale for a count of 4, you hold the breath for 4, and then you exhale for a count of 4, and you hold the breath for 4. And just by doing, it could be just 3 or 4, maybe 5 rounds of that, you'll feel all of those symptoms start to relax. So your heart rate will start to slow down. You'll feel sort of less tingly in the body, and immediately you've started to suppress the stress. So then I always talk to especially business owners about taking breaks. They are super busy. They are spinning so many different plates that it's go, go, go constantly. However, research has shown you have to stop. If you don't stop and give your body and your brain time to process, time to recover, you'll flop. Your body will just say enough. And it normally identifies itself with illness. So your immunity will basically end up on the floor, and you'll pick up coughs, colds, pretty much anything that's going around, or it could just be on your day off. You are exhausted and you just can't get yourself out of bed. That's your body's way of coping, essentially. So micro breaks. These are to reset your mood, to recharge your energy levels. It could just be 10 minutes. So it could be just getting up away from your desk, going to make a cup of tea. It could be having a quick walk around the block, get a bit of fresh air in your lungs. Or if you're into things like meditation, perhaps just doing a quick 10-minute meditation, and that will really make you feel refreshed. Research also shows, funnily enough, not to leave it till the afternoon, because if you leave it until you're really flagging, it's not that restorative. If you do it earlier on in the day, so really manage your energy, it will keep you going for longer. And the last thing that I will touch on is, as Emma said, you've often got those big tasks, and when you're under stress, the brain finds it really difficult and really overwhelming to deal with sort of big chunky things. So I always say, right, how can we break this down? Let's have a look at what needs to be done. Let's put into place small things that we can do that chip away at this bigger the bigger piece of work. And the reason being is, one, it will give you a plan, so it seems less daunting. You've actually got a framework to work to. Two, each time you complete a section, your body will receive a dopamine hit. And what that will do is, give you a sense of happiness, a sense of well-being, and a little bit more energy. And you'll end up just kind of energizing yourself to keep going. And as we know, when we're stressed, exhaustion is a big thing. So anything we can do to kind of help us get those good hormones flowing is always going to be a bonus.
Tammy, I want to ask, how important is self-care in stress management, and how can we prioritize well-being without feeling guilty?
Okay, so first of all, they are no good to anyone, including themselves, their family, their colleagues, if they're ill, if they're burnt out, if they're not firing on all cylinders, if their decision making's impaired. So you have to, at some point, realize you are but human. We're all human. And we need a little bit of self-compassion. We need to say to ourselves, okay, I wouldn't expect my car, for example, to do a trip, of 200 miles without making sure there's air in the tires, there's oil in the engine, there's enough petrol. So why do we expect it of ourselves? It's not possible. We need to make sure that our body and our mind is rested and refueled. So the way in which I always deal with it, especially with super busy people, is there is no point in me saying, right, you need to, I don't know, go away on a detox retreat or, whatever, because people just aren't going to do that. It's the small things, it's the quick things that are easy to do that will always give you the bigger wins. So I've identified a few things, but I want to talk a bit more now about movement. So I've said about taking breaks, but how about just things like posture when we're at our desk? We tend to be hunched over our computer. It give us stiff necks and back pain. So many people I know sort of are suffering from back pain, and a lot of it is because of this poor posture. And one of the quickest ways we can fix this is with chair yoga. So it can be literally just a 5-minute routine, and it is proven to help stress and relieve tension. So it can be, again, there's loads and loads and loads of different exercises if you look online, but it's things like, just stretching the arms up. It's things like rolling the shoulders back, get them back into the right position. It's anything that would get the blood pumping back around the body, twist the torso, circle the arms, anything, as I say, just to get oxygen flowing back round. And what that will also do is release more of these feel-good hormones that I spoke about earlier. So things like endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin, for example, they're all responsible for producing feelings of happiness and well-being, as well as relaxation. So again, it's a super quick fix that you can do alongside the breathing and the micro breaks and the planning. But again, it's something that biologically will get your body working better for you.
Let's discuss burnout. How can entrepreneurs recognize early signs of burnout in themselves and their teams? And what can they do to prevent it?
Yeah, for sure. Burnout is a relatively new term. It was first coined back in the 1970s by a psychologist called Friedenberger. And his definition of it is the extinction of motivation or incentive, especially when one's devotion to cause or relationship fails to produce desired results. That's a bit waffly, I think. Essentially, what burnout is when you've been living with stress for so long, your body just says enough. It can't manifest itself in a number of different ways to function properly. So it will impair you physically, mentally, your emotional strength will be weakened. So you might get things such as feelings of tiredness, you're more irritable, certainly more distracted. And Emma said, earlier, feelings of being inadequate and incompetent. I've touched on physical, but you will get more of those aches and pains, more headaches. You could have reduced appetite, or it could be the other way. You could be overeating. You may even feel sick, or you may have IBS. That's another symptom of stress, because your body, when in flight or flight mode, down regulates all of the all the non-important bodily systems, things like digestion, fertility. It says this isn't going to save your life, so you don't need it right now. Emotionally, obviously there's anxiety, but there's also feelings of hopelessness. So it's very difficult to find the willpower or the way power to work your way through various different problems that you may be having. And that's because mentally you've got that poor concentration, the muddled thinking, and the indecisiveness. So my best advice whenever I talk about how to beat burnout, stop burnout, it's by having, I'll come on to this a little bit later, but a recovery plan in place. You need to close the stress cycle. People often think that with stress, if you, I don't know, say you have I'll go back to the example of a supplier, a stressful supplier. You deal with that issue and you think, right, that's done. And then you move on to the next issue. So they think, right, that's done. So then the stress is gone. Well, it isn't. All of those hormones I spoke about earlier are still floating around the body. You need to close that stress cycle, get rid of all those hormones, and then that will kind of reset the body for the next task. So as I say, it could be exercising, it could be relaxing, it could be spending time with friends. Laughing is absolutely fantastic for it. You have to think about stress and overcoming stress as balance. You need to get that balance in place.
People often talk about practicing mindfulness to get a sense of calm and clarity. What is mindfulness and how can we use it to manage stress?
Yeah, sure. So mindfulness is pretty much exactly as it says. It's being mindful about whatever it is we're doing. So it could be mindfully doing tasks. It could be mindfully doing your breathing. It could be mindfully having a recovery plan in place. I think a really great example of mindfulness is something which is called cognitive diffusion. So again, to go back to biology, we all have these negative thoughts. Let's be honest, we have a lot of negative thoughts. Research shows that as much as about 80% of our thoughts are negative. So what cognitive diffusion techniques allow us to do is detach from all of the clutter that's in our mind. So instead of seeing the world through distorted or unhelpful thoughts, what the diffusion does is allow you to see thoughts as just a thought. So it says they're not real, it's not happening, just see it as something that you're thinking, it's not real. And ask yourself where these thoughts are coming from. So is it your inner critic speaking up? Are you worrying about what might be happening in the future? And our thoughts, although their effects are super powerful and can cause an awful lot of stress, they're just thoughts. So what cognitive diffusion does is allow you to disconnect the two. So here, there's a few techniques that you might find useful. So when you have an upsetting thought, you distance yourself from it. So say to yourself, okay, I'm having a thought about that contract not being won. Okay, distance yourself from it. And it's, okay, that's a scenario that I'm worrying about. Can I do anything about that right now? Nope, the proposal's gone in. We did a really good, solid job. It's now in the lap of the gods, for example. Or if you are more a visual person, it could be that you think to yourself, okay, I've got this thought going round. I'm just going to place it on a cloud and I'm just going to watch it drift away because I don't need to think about it right now. It's not happening. It's not real. And just remind yourself that thoughts, like clouds, they don't have any substance. And the last technique is name that story. So this is really important, especially if you've got quite a strong inner critic like I do. I see her as this old moany lady that's in my head, just kind of barking away at me. And this is the voice that will say to you things like, you're not good enough, or no one likes you, or my life is horrible, or, you know, I'm no good, everyone hates me. You know the stories that kind of keep in repeat in your own mind. So it's then that you say, oh, okay, that's moany inner critic speaking up. I don't need you right now. And it will help you to shut the book. So what these techniques will do will help you take the power out of these stressful thoughts and will allow you to manage them in such a way as to kind of try and get through all the clutter, clear the clutter to help you think more clearly.
Distance yourself from negative thoughts and silence your inner critic to take control. Wow, that's powerful. I'll jot that down on a post-it and stick it to my laptop. Now, how do we set healthy boundaries between work and personal life to prevent burnout?
Oh, that's such a hard one, I think, because you're talking to business owners who and founders who've had an idea, who have really put their heart and soul and their lives, often their life savings, into getting something off the ground. It's probably one of the most, it's not going to be the most, but for some people it's going to feel like the most important thing in their lives. And thoughts about their business, what they're going to do, consume their waking lives. And that passion is right, because nothing will succeed if we feel lukewarm about our idea. But we need to realize that, as Tammy has said, we need some balance here. We need recovery. And friends, family, interests outside of work are all resources that help us. They help us when times are difficult. Just being able to have a friendly face, or to know that you're going out in the evening and you're going to an art class. Maybe that's the thing you need that enables you to get through what's been a tough day. And then they celebrate with you in the good times. I think we forget about that. When we talk about stress, we're often talking about all the the doom, the gloom, the tough, the struggle. But actually, being an entrepreneur is fantastic. It's fantastic. The lows can be low, but the highs can be high. And if you have friends, family, people that respect you and love you, maybe, who want you to succeed, then actually what can really mitigate against the stress and build your resilience proactively is being able to celebrate small and big wins that you've achieved your business with your friends and family. So you need to keep them around. There are a couple of things then to think about in terms of a mindset around boundaries, because it is really hard. I think we all know people that will be on their phones constantly, have it by the bed, they're having conversations with people and they're still checking their email and they're, oh, I'm really sorry, I have to take this call. I'm going to make myself really unpopular by saying two things here. One is, I'm really sorry to let you know, stress and overwork is not a badge of honor. Mm-hmm. We say that all the time, don't we? Oh, I'm so busy, and everyone, yes, and I'm busy too. And it becomes a virtue. And I think I've subscribed to that for a really long time. Tammy's talked so eloquently about the inner critic. And I would like to point out, by the way, there are tons of free webinars. Tammy's on our website, bigfishtraining.com. Tammy's recently done one on scientific ways to handle stress. She's also done a full hour on techniques to handle burnout. We also cover setting boundaries. So if people want to go there, they're very welcome to. They're free resources. So the first one is mindset. Understand that stress and overwork is not a badge of honor. That the second thing, and this is going to make me really, really unpopular, where you put your attention is a choice. I mean, that's a horrible thing to say, I think, but we do choose it. And I think if we don't really understand that rest and recuperation from stress is important to power our performance, then We will be tempted to prioritize work. Oh, I'm really sorry, I can't come to dinner with you yet again at the last minute because a work thing has come up. People are forgiving for a certain amount of time, but maybe they won't be there when you finish your launch, when you've got your next round of funding and you're ready to go and celebrate. Maybe there'll be no one to celebrate with. So I think it's just about realizing I need to make a decision about the balance in my life. And like everything we do as business people, as humans in general, understand that, put some intention, put some thought into this. Understand that work will fill up every inch of your mind and your time if you let it. But the thing is, it will feel like we're powerless, but you do have the power to turn off the tap. And I think it's a hard thing. I struggle with this. It's a permanent struggle with me too, just to remind myself. But yes, the thing that helps me, Ruxandra, you talked about having a Post-it note with something to help you. I have a Post-it note at the moment that says stress stifles innovation. And I think that's really helpful for understanding that while stress makes me feel like I'm busy and successful and I'm doing everything, actually it stifles innovation. And innovation is what we all need in order to succeed.
How do physical activity and nutrition help us manage stress? Tammy, can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. It is super important, super powerful. And it's pretty much what we put into our body food-wise, and the physical activity we do is probably one of the most important things we can do for ourselves to manage stress, to keep the mind and the body healthy. But it's one of the things that slips the quickest when we're stressed, to be honest. So I want to look at this as, okay, let's go down the analogy of the athlete. Okay, if you think about an athlete, they will make sure that their nutrition is on point. They will make sure that their physical activity, so the training plan, is on point. They will make sure that their recovery plan is on point. Okay, it's balance. They know that they cannot succeed if any of those three are off kilter. So if they're not fueling their body correctly, they will not perform at their best. If they are not doing the exercise, doing the training, they will not be at their best. And most importantly, if they don't take time to let their body and mind recover, they will not be at their best. Okay, so we always talk about the first two, but I want to emphasize we need a recovery plan. Okay, top athletes do it, pilots do it. Anyone that's top of their game knows the importance. So yes, nutrition, yes, movement, yes, recovery, people. Okay, so now I've beat that drum. So let's talk about physical activity. So whenever I mention physical activity, people roll their eyes at me and they're like, really, Tammy, I hate treadmills, or I don't want to go for a run, or I don't want to do a marathon. That's all rubbish. That's not, if that's your bag, great, do it. But when I talk about activity, it could be anything from having a walk in nature. So take the dog out for a walk. It could be yoga, Pilates, having a swim, whatever floats your boat. It could be a round of golf with your friends at the weekend, or it could be a kickboxing class if that's more your thing. Just do something. And the reason why it's so important is biologically, you will get a release of all the feel-good endorphins I mentioned earlier. It distracts you away from your stress. And when you're distracted, that's when your body and your mind is able to process what's gone on in the week. So it's often when you're doing, I don't know, either an activity or you're resting, that you'll get that great idea and you think, oh, brilliant, that's what I need to do. And that's because your mind hasn't shut down. It's not like you've stopped working. You're just given the brain time to process what's been going on. You'll also strengthen your immune system. So as I mentioned earlier, when you're under stress for a long period of time, your immune system lowers and you get sicker quicker. So by putting exercise in there, you help strengthen the immune system back up. You can easily integrate meditation with it. So nature is proven, for example, to be very calming. So you could do a walk-in meditation, for example, or with yoga, mindful breathing. There's 100 different meditation apps out there. All are absolutely fantastic. It improves your mood. It will reduce the symptoms of anxiety. And more importantly, it helps your concentration. It also helps your sleep, which is something that we haven't mentioned here. But again, you need to recharge. So you need to have that solid hours of sleep. For some people, that would be 6 hours. Some people, that's 8 hours, 9 hours. You know your sweet spot. But you need that chunk of rested time. And a lot of the time when we're stressed, we'll be waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and we'll be like, right, I need to do this and I need to do that. And the brain starts ticking. So if that's you, there's a few different things we can do there. Firstly, that box breath that I spoke about earlier, that's really good for distracting the mind and calming the body back down. And by counting, you stop thinking, but then that helps get you back to sleep. Secondly, we mentioned nutrition. So we all know that we need to eat the rainbow, make sure that we're getting all of the good vitamins and minerals and everything else in there. But there's a kind of paradox that goes on when we're stressed. We know that when what we should be doing for the body is eating well, exercising, having recovery, and yet when we're stressed, what do? We work more, we grab food on the go, we don't go out, we don't go to the gym, all of that goes, and we just try and plow on. And what we often do is then go to state changes, what I call state changes. So what do I mean by that? That's caffeine, so lots of coffee or tea, sugar, lots of sugar. And the reason why we do that is because it gives you that quick fix of energy and you're like, right, go. So it might be 6 o'clock in the morning, you have your first coffee. So woof, you're ready for your day. And then as that caffeine starts coming down, you're like, so then maybe another coffee or maybe a couple of biscuits. So that gives you a little bit more energy. And what you're doing is just putting yourself on what I call the energy roller coaster. So you're up and down all day. Your energy levels are raising and dipping. And you just feel completely exhausted by the end of the day. And what will also happen then is that you won't sleep very well because your body will wake you up at about 3 o'clock in the morning and it will say, right, okay, I need some more sugar or I need some more caffeine. Come on, let's get going. And that's the last time, that's not the time you need it at all. So we need to be really mindful about what we're putting into our body to keep our energy levels nice and stable. It will help you concentrate better. You'll have less fatigue. You can help eliminate these stress hormones that I've told you about. So I'm not going to give anyone a diet sheet because we know what we're supposed to be doing. It's, let's eat less processed food. Let's cut out a lot more sugar, a lot more caffeine, cut out a lot of the starchy carbs, eat the rainbow, and eat a lot of a variety is really important. And what we often skip is water. So it's really key to keep our mind and our body hydrated, because that will literally just super boost your mental clarity and your body.
We're now getting to our last question. If you could give entrepreneurs just one key piece of advice on stress management, what would it be?
Okay, so I want to finish with compassion. And I think it's something that we all don't have enough of. I think people think if you show yourself self-compassion, it's somehow weak. Now, what I always say to people is imagine you're having a conversation with, I don't know, it could be your son, your daughter, a best friend, and they're feeling how you're feeling right now. And they're saying to you, I'm really overworked. I'm working all these hours. I'm so stressed. This is what's going on, etc., etc., etc. what advice would you give them? Would you say to them, just plow through, pull your socks up, like have another coffee and crack on? No, you wouldn't. You would say to them, right, okay, you can't continue like this. And you would help them put this recovery plan into place. What I say is turn that mirror on yourself and give yourself that same advice, the same compassion, and the same time to recover as you would expect anyone you care about to do.
Emma, would you like to add anything to that?
Oh my goodness, it's quite hard to follow that. Tammy is such an expert on this, and I've really valued your advice through the years and on this podcast. I would say it's very simple. Actually, I would say to any entrepreneur right now, it's important to remember that you don't have to choose between performance and stress. The two don't have to come hand in hand, because it's very simple. When you feel better, you do better. So why wouldn't you prioritize lowering stress, prioritize balance and rest? So yes, for me, it's all about the head, making those choices knowing when you feel better, you do better.
Emma, Tammy, thank you both so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us. And yes, really hope it has been helpful. Thank you.
And as Emma mentioned, those resources, if you have a look on our website, it's www.bigfishtraining.com. All of the back webinars that we've done are on there. You can also sign up to any future webinars that we're doing. They're all free, and it's all our give back to everyone to help everyone be happier, healthier, and be their best self, both within work and well-being.
You've heard that. Visit Big Fish Training website for more tips, and stay tuned for our next podcast at Enterprise Europe Network to boost your small business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. I'm your host, Roxandra Bosilka, and I'll see you next time.